Toronto had firmly arrived on the world's tech scene.
The fourth largest tech market in all of North America.
What we're doing in Canada is making sure that there is room for everyone to succeed.
Toronto is having a moment.
We are building an ecosystem. The Silicon Valley's been around for 50 plus years. This isn't going to happen overnight.
I believe the culture of Silicon Valley drove others to a business model that is incredibly destructive. Let's not just sleepwalk into a world where technology authoritarianism governs our choices.
Technology is all around us. We are constantly being surveilled.
Responsible data use is one of the biggest social issues of our time.
We have to balance the privacy responsibility.
We can't lose sight. Technology is great, but it's about people.
We don't come together as a people, the world will end right in front of us.
Because if we don't succeed together, we're all going to fail.
Holy smokes, welcome back to Lisbon. How's everybody feeling? I thought Philomena was just incredible. Philomena, thank you so much. She was the star of our online event in 2020. She's just a superstar and she's done so much for us, so I'd love you to put your hands together for Philomena. I'd also love to just say a huge thank you to the 18 startups that pitched. It's incredibly daunting. Many of them have never pitched in front of more than 100 people before. So to pitch in front of all of you is just incredible. So thank you to all 18 of them. So I'm always interested as I look out. There was a moment about 5 months ago. It wasn't clear whether Web Summit would actually take place in 2022 or not. At the end of June, we got the go-ahead for Web Summit to return to Lisbon. By August, we were nervous we would even get to 10,000 attendees. What's happened over the last 2.5 months is quite remarkable, that so many people from so many countries around the world have gathered once again in Lisbon for the next 4 days. And I'd love to hear a few kind of voices from faraway places and places just next door. Is there anybody from Spain in the audience? Come on, Spain, you can do better than that. Don't be shy. What about, we'll go a bit further afield. What about Ukraine? Oh, what about we go to kind of party capital of the world? Anybody here from Brazil? And finally, we shouldn't forget them. They're no longer in the European Union. Anyone here from the United Kingdom? You're all welcome. You're all very, very welcome at Web Summit. Web Summit is very much about meeting old friends and making new connections. And the way that we do that is by coming together face to face. At Web Summit, we have a tradition where we all stand up in a moment and we shake hands. I think it's okay to avoid that this year where possible. Fist bumps are great. But what I would love to do is that for everybody to stand up, introduce yourself to the person beside you, take out the Web Summit app. That is the best way to share your credentials. It's not just safe, it's also environmentally friendly. There's no need to exchange a business card. And just tap the red button. Say hello to the person beside you, scan their badge, and you've exchanged your contact details. Let's all stand up and introduce ourselves to everyone.
First is, do we have the app?
Fantastic. Well, there's going to be lots more time at Night Summit to catch up with each other. Let's all begin to sit down. We'll begin to sit down. I don't know if I'll be able to stop this. Wow. Okay, let's all get back seated. Hopefully you guys can all hear me. Finally, before I introduce two incredibly important supporters and partners of Web Summit, I just want to say a little something about Portugal, because we haven't talked about Portugal yet. Portugal is our beautiful host country. It has become the most vaccinated country on earth. It's an absolutely monumental achievement. So let's give a standing ovation to our host, this remarkably united country of Portugal. So, we've spent a decade building an event operating system to help revolutionize our events. Our software has helped make Web Summit the largest, and I hope the best tech conference in the world. Our vision has always been that our software will help not just make our events better, but in time make tens of thousands of events better. Earlier this year, the United Nations became our first software customer. And in recent days, we've announced that the Consumer Electronics Show, the world's largest trade show, will be powered by Web Summit software, which is, for us as a small company that started with a tiny event 10 years ago, a remarkable achievement. My team have been working so hard, and I really hope you enjoy the software that's powering this event, and I encourage you to use the mobile app and the web app to connect, meet, message, set up meetings, and get the best, ultimately, out of Web Summit. Now, for two of our most important speakers this evening. Lisbon has a long history of fantastic mayors, many of whom have gone on to become the prime ministers and presidents of Portugal. Lisbon, as many of you know, has a new mayor. He is the former European Commissioner for Research, Science and Innovation, and a former Portuguese government minister. Please welcome to the stage the new mayor of Lisbon, Carlos Moedas.
Welcome to Lisbon. Welcome to this beautiful city, a city of poets, a city of innovators, an amazing city. And I'm talking to you today as the recent elected mayor of Lisbon, just elected 1 month ago and inaugurated 2 weeks ago. I was here before with all of you since the very beginning, since 2016. And it was here that I met amazing minds and people that helped me at the time as a European Commissioner to do my job. People like Patty Cosgrave or Roxanne Varza or Jim Schnapp or Constantine von Orange, they helped me every day. And we built at the European level the European Innovation Council, 10 billion euros every year for innovators. So I'm the mayor of innovation. My DNA, my friends, is innovation, and that's so I'm so happy to be with you today here. But from those conversations that we had at the time, there was one conversation that will always stick to my mind. A friend of ours, Jim Schnapp, the co-founder of SAP, was talking about dreams and details. And for me at the time, that sentence that became a book from Jim called Dreams and Details was really something so simple but so powerful, right? If you want to change the world, if you really want to do good, you need to dream, you need to inspire people. But at the same time, you have to be very good at the details. The details are the ones that can change the world if you get the details right. And that's what you do here at the Web Summit. And on that night, we were talking about one of my best, really, readings of all times, one of the best biographers of all times, Walter Isaacson. And Walter Isaacson tells a story that I love when Steve Jobs was just 9 years old. And his father asked him to paint the fence around the house. And he painted the fence on the front of the fence, but there was a part of the fence with a tree that was hidden from everybody. And he came back and he said, "Daddy, I did a great job. I've painted the fence. There's one part of the fence that I really didn't paint because nobody will ever see it. It's hidden over there." And the father said, "No, Steve, but you will know about it." And real artists, real innovators, they get everything right. They make it beautiful from the inside and the outside. They take care of details. And in 1983, imagine that, 1983, Steve Jobs was launching the Macintosh, the new Macintosh. It was a box. For those that are older will remember. It was a box, and he looked inside of the box of that computer, and the whole circuit board was messy. The wires were messy, and he said to the engineers, "You have to get it beautiful inside of this computer. You have to do it yourself." And the engineers said, "No, Steve, nobody will ever see it." And Steve Jobs stopped for 6 weeks the shipping of that computer and asked the engineers to make it beautiful inside. And at the end, he asked every one of them to sign their names inside the box. Nobody ever saw those names, but they knew it. They knew it that because of that detail, they were the best. And that dichotomy in between dreams and the details, it's what moves me as a politician and as a person every day. And when I think about our challenges here in Lisbon and the challenges of the world, like sustainability or innovation, it's exactly what I think every day. If you talk about sustainability, there's a lot of people talking about it. Talking about the dream of fighting climate change or the dream of making cities carbon neutral. But what are the details? The details of that is that you can make public transportation free for people so they don't use their car. The details is that if you want to do and to have a sustainable country, you'll have to fight energy poverty and have programs for people to be able to warm their homes that winter. You have to have those details right. And that's the details that I will work in Lisbon. And if we talk so many other details, I think that the great thing about the Web Summit, that this is the place where the people that love details get together. If you think about innovation, I told everybody my dream is that Lisbon will be the capital of innovation of the world. But what are the details for me to be able to do that? We have to be able to go beyond Web Summit. We have to make happen that you and your companies stay in Lisbon because you see the opportunity. So I promised that next year we will found, with the help of the Web Summit and so many of you, what I called as a dream, the Unicorn Factory of Lisbon. And the Unicorn Factory of Lisbon will be the place where we will teach the details and the process so the young people can transform their ideas in great businesses and create jobs and change the world and have purpose. That's what the Unicorn Factory will be. And what the message that I have today to you, it's very simple. Whatever you do in life, whatever is your project, dream big, but go deep on the detail. Go deep on the detail, my friends, because that's what can change the world. And if you do that, I can tell you just one thing. Lisbon is the right place to do it, because Lisbon is the only city that intersects the details with the dreams. Come and stay in Lisbon. It's an open city for you. Love you all. Thank you for being here in our beautiful city. Thank you very much.
Mayor, thank you so much. Portugal's economy has proved incredibly resilient through the pandemic. Startups in particular in recent years are thriving. And so it's a great honor for me to ask you to please welcome to the stage Portugal's Minister of Economy, Pedro César Vieira.
Good evening. What an exciting image. All of you gathered together, and to think that 18 months ago, we were all at home. We couldn't get in touch with each other. We couldn't see each other face to face. And now we're back. And I think that for just that one thing, this Web Summit edition is something to be proud of. I think that when we will be looking back into these past 2 years, we will see very strange things happening, affecting the way we have lived, we have worked, and have enhanced, enlarged the horizon of possibilities for us as a community. No one would have believed that we could have kept an economy going, people working, goods being delivered, and people just creating wealth at a distance. We discovered that the technological development of our societies, the willingness of populations to use digital technologies to work, are truly more mature than we have believed. And that on its own will accelerate the pace of change in the years to come. Of course, just by staying at home, just by restricting activities, the impact on our economies across the world have been massive. Governments have had to, on a very significant level, deploy funds to support companies, to preserve jobs, to support the income of those who have lost their activities. This created an unprecedented movement from governments around the world to look differently at how we can organize our societies and mobilize resources to make change happen. Just think about the European Union Next Generation EU plan. Leaders got together and decided to issue long-term debt to invest in our recovery, but to do so by making sure that we invest in those activities which will create the basis for our shared prosperity in the future and for a society and an economy which is climate-friendly and more digitized. That alone is the basis of the promise that the next years will face. Portugal was very massively impacted by the restrictions that we had. Just think that Portugal, just like France, Spain, or Italy, has a large part of its economy dependent on tourism. And tourism was the most affected activity. Even so, we recovered very quickly. The rebound of our economy has been massive. And as vaccination plans progressed, we saw that we are growing now stronger than the average of the European Union. Just on itself, the vaccination, the deployment that we are doing across the world in the richest countries to start with, but certainly to other continents, is going to be something that mankind has never created on such a massive scale and such a short period of time. And that alone, again, is a reason for hope. We did not stood still throughout these times. We've made very significant changes. In Portugal, we commenced with the shutdown of our coal-fired power plants. One of those have shut already, the other is going to close before the end of the year. And as the year progresses, from January to September, 2/3 of our electricity comes from renewable sources. And in doing so, we are also making sure that the costs of electricity to our domestic consumers, to our industries and businesses, is lower than it was before. So this is the right way to progress. We did not stood still, and we are going to accelerate on our climate transition. We also progressed in our digital transition, and this has been a great year for startups and tech. Just now, we have registered a 160% growth year on year on the capability of our startups in Portugal to raise capital from venture capital. 1 billion euros has already been raised because tech has shown to be the one thing that has kept our economies alive and shows a promise for the future. Portugal is the country where people come to invest. We have the largest proportion of our GDP in foreign direct investment than the average of the European Union. People come to live in Portugal. It is the third safest country in the world, not only in terms of your personal safety, but also in terms of your health. And the fact that we are the country which has the highest proportion of our population with complete vaccination for COVID is testament to that. It is the place where people like to come to live and work. And we have continued to welcome new residents to our country throughout the time of COVID. People have come just to spend some time in a safe and pleasant location, and they've decided to stay, but also others who have come to invest and to start their businesses. This is my final message to you. I hope you enjoy Web Summit. I hope you enjoy these precious days in Lisbon. But I hope that you come back. I hope that you talk to your friends, to your partners, and tell them around the world that Lisbon and Portugal is the place to live, to invest, to do business, and to do so in a manner which is open to difference, tolerant, and multicultural. Welcome to Lisbon. Welcome to Portugal. Have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Now it's time to get our first Web Summit speaker on stage. Two C's are dominating Web Summit: crypto and climate. We've over 200 impact startups exhibiting and speaking at Web Summit. We've also nearly 200 startups in the crypto space. NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, have captured the public imagination. The company at the very forefront of NFTs is Sorare. So please welcome to the stage, in conversation with Matt Garahan, news editor of the Financial Times, Sorare's founder and CEO, Nicolas Julia.
I told you there'd be a lot of people.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people. Hello, Lisbon.
Zoom, it's impressive.
It's very impressive. Thanks for having us, Lisbon. First, before we get started, it's great to see everybody face to face. A big round of applause to all of you. And also, I just want to say a big round of applause to the vaccines, which meant that we could all get together today. So we're going to shift from one technological marvel, vaccines, to a new form of technology, to NFTs, non-fungible tokens, as Paddy said. Now, Nicola, a lot of people in the audience will be intimately aware of NFTs and what they are.
Yep.
Some of the people here might not have ever heard of an NFT. Why don't you give us a quick summary of NFTs, what they are and how they work?
Yeah, basically an NFT is a digital item that you truly own, and that is could be digitally scarce and that you can move away. So these are items that will bring back power to people to own digital stuff. The old version of the web, we could copy everything, pictures, music, video, and now with an NFT, we can truly own something digital. And so it's going to reinvent a lot of industries.
Right. Now, your company, you've got a lot of, you produce NFTs and you have a lot of partners in sport. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, how that works with football in particular? I know you're a big football fan.
Yeah, definitely. So we are producing NFTs that represent football players and that can be used in a game. And so we work with football clubs and leagues to partner with them and get the rights to use the image of players, of clubs, of leagues to produce these NFTs.
Yeah. Now, again, it's a relatively new form of technology born on the blockchain, right? Again, there are a lot of people who are skeptical about blockchain, skeptical about cryptocurrencies. Are NFTs a fad, or are they the future of something more significant?
When we started our company 3 years ago, and the NFT standard, popped up on the Ethereum blockchain, we were like, it's going to have an impact as big as the web and mobile. And the reason is that we are bringing back power to people to own their digital lives. And so as our lives become digital, everything of value will need an NFT. So it's going to be huge. It's going to be transform industries, and it's going to stay for decades as an underlying technology of all these industries.
Yeah. Now, the company's quite young, right? Yep. 3 years old?
3 years old, yeah.
Okay, just tell us, and you just closed a funding round with SoftBank as one of the investors. Just tell us about that process and how the valuation of the company has expanded over in those 3 years.
Yeah, the company is 3 years old, so we raised a Series A led by Benchmark in February this year with participation of Axel. The valuation was $270 million, and we raised the biggest ever European Series B a couple of months ago, this summer, led by SoftBank. The valuation went to $4.3 billion. So yeah, that was a big jump.
So that's a jump from $270 million valuation 3 years ago to $4.3 billion in the latest round, in 3 years.
In less than 3 years, But I think something important is that the company has been profitable from the first day. We have all those exclusive deals with football clubs and leagues. We have 500,000 users that came organically without doing any paid marketing. So there's some strong fundamentals also behind it. Yeah.
And what are the other forms of NFTs that we're talking about? I mean, you guys are very into sport, but again, some of the people in the audience may have heard of NFTs in art.
Yeah.
Or gaming.
So anything of value on the web will be an NFT tomorrow. Your identity, maybe you want to truly own it and not rely on a third party to move it and to prove who you are on the web. Art is a good example and one of the first use cases alongside gaming because it brings so much to the artist to be able to directly connect with the fans and to get royalties on secondary sales and all those things that NFTs will bring to them and are bringing to them. So yeah, gaming and art are at the forefront, but all the industries will be concerned.
Right. But sport and football in particular, European football is where you started.
Yeah. So
and in France is where the company is based, right?
Yeah, the company is based in Paris. We are opening an office in the US. We have more than 200 football clubs partnering with us. And I guess, in these difficult times for the sports industry in general, the value proposition is compelling because we are bringing to them a new revenue stream. Right. We are creating a new industry, a new category, so it's not competing with their old existing partners. And we are bringing exposure to a new audience in new markets in the US, in Asia. So it's just a win for them to partner with us. Yeah.
So SoftBank was one of the lead funders in the latest round. I mean, SoftBank's a very high-profile tech investor. They have their big stake in Alibaba, which is worth an enormous amount of money. But they also, in the last few years, have been associated with some pretty high-profile mistakes. There's THG, which is really struggling in the UK. Greensill, some people here may have heard of the Greensill scandal in the UK as well. WeWork is obviously a company which was very, very highly valued and then kind of shrunk to where it is now. Do you feel any extra pressure, given that you've got into bed with SoftBank, than you might have had with another investor?
First of all, when you do something you love at the intersection of your two passions, crypto and football and sports, life is good. That's first. But then, regarding SoftBank in particular, we had, many opportunities to raise this Series B, and we went with them because of Marcelo Claure, who's leading SoftBank, and so he's a huge sports fan, and so he helped us even before, this raise, and that's why we decided to go with him, because he believed in the vision that we have for entertainment in general and sports in particular, and we're very, very happy to have him alongside us and the partnership.
And what was it like trying to do a big fundraising round in a pandemic, and you're plotting the future of the company, and you're talking to investors, but you can't get out and meet them or show them what you're talking about? Was it difficult?
No, as an entrepreneur, I think it's cool because you want to build a product, you want to attract consumers, and you don't want to spend your time raising money, and so it moves faster. You don't have to travel. We raised a round with Benchmark. It was less than 48 hours between my first meeting with Peter Fenton and the term sheet signed. So that's something that is a plus for entrepreneurs, to be able to move faster and focus on the business. So it was definitely a positive.
And was there something about the way NFTs are used by your users, your community, that proved the use case in the pandemic?
Yeah, so the fact that, of course, during the pandemic, fans could not go to the stadium, and we're looking for ways to connect with their passion, and that's exactly what we are doing. We are bringing fans closer to their passion, because they are able to collect their NFTs, but also to use them in our fantasy game and use them in the physical world. You can think about these NFTs as a way to unlock experiences, being on the web with our game, and on the physical world, meeting a player, going to the stadium, this kind of things.
And is there a generational sort of disconnect between the people who really get NFTs? I mean, these are skewing younger, right? These are younger people who get them.
Yeah, it's a good
or who
question.
understand the concept better.
When I started thinking about this company, I was like, as human beings, we have been collecting stuff for centuries. This is something we do for many reasons, because you want to complete a collection, you want to make money, you want whatever reason we collect as human beings. But that was not possible on the web, because we could copy everything. Uniqueness was not built on the web as we know it. And so when we saw NFTs, we saw this property of NFTs, which is digital scarcity. And we were like, it's going to unlock this behavior to the web. So I think that, and when we look at our demographics, it's not that young, actually. We have a lot of collectors that are not that young. And so, I think it's going to come. It's radical innovation, so it takes time, segment after segment of adopters. But, and it's very early, for sure.
And you've married your passion, football and tech, football and crypto. What are the clubs? Can you talk about some of the clubs that you're working with? Or we're in a big football city of Lisbon, right? I mean,
So we have the Tres Grandes, as we say here, the three big Portuguese clubs: Porto, Benfica, and Sporting. Hopefully, the full league soon. And so, again, it's all about bringing them a new revenue stream, bringing them more exposure for their audience, and of course, offering the best sport game for their fans.
Any Sporting fans in the house tonight? Yeah. Benfica fans in the house? Any Porto fans in the house? Oh, wow, it's just well represented, the Tres Grandes. And beyond football, what does the future hold? Well, first of all, staying in sports, what other markets can you get into? And then beyond sport, beyond football, what can this company do?
Our ambition is to build the biggest entertainment group in the world of sports, and starting with football, but soon expanding to US sports. We are opening an office in the US. Also, what we are very excited about is to do it from Europe, and I think that we are creating this new market from here. That's really exciting. We are not copying something that exists somewhere else. We are doing it from here. And I think that starting with football makes sense also, because of course that's like most of the big clubs are here in Europe. So it's and we have everything to succeed here. We have the talent, we have now the maturity, and we have the ambition. So we are very excited to build it from here.
And I mean, we're here at the biggest tech conference in Europe, if not the world, as Paddy was saying. I don't know if there's anyone who will disagree with him about that. I mean, you're one of the largest European unicorns, right? How do you see the evolution of European tech or the European tech sector? And why aren't there more unicorns? Why aren't there more European unicorns?
Again, I think that things are accelerating because we see more maturity with repeat entrepreneurs and some successful exits that bring knowledge to the new generation of entrepreneurs that are willing to start not only to dominate their local market or to dominate Europe, but to eat the world, and that's what we want, right? So, I'm very excited about the future of tech in Europe, and I think I'm not alone, because when we see US investors and Asian investors, starting to come and invest more and more, and even at the pre-seed or seed stage, I think that's a strong signal as well.
And you had a very positive experience with Silicon Valley investors. Do you get the sense, are they on the lookout in Europe for more deals, for more opportunities?
So if we take the example of Benchmark, who's obviously one of the very top funds in the world, they are investing more than 50% of the new deals outside of the US right now, and they are particularly looking into Europe. So yeah, it's happening now, actually.
Right, that's very encouraging to hear. And NFTs, I mean, where will NFTs be in 5 years, 10 years' time? And where will your company be in that time?
So
if NFTs continue to grow in the way that you hope?
NFTs will be the underlying technology for everything of value on the web. So could be monetary value, or could be like personal value. I was mentioning your identity earlier on, so that's something that an NFT could carry for you on the web. So it's going to be invisible, and that's something I think that we try to do as well, like make it accessible for millions of people. We want people to feel the benefits of it, that you truly own your digital good, that you can move it and so on, without having the friction, right, of crypto that most of the crypto products have today. It's complicated. So I see it as a technology that's going to underpin everything of value on the web.
Okay. It's a bold claim and a bold ambition. We're out of time, but Nicolas, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
You can shake hands properly.
Okay.
Please welcome to the stage RTP host Philomena Cautela.
Woo! Hello again. This is the last time I will be on this stage today, and I just wanted to say that it is an incredible honor to introduce our next guest. It really is. In 2013, 3 incredible organizers, Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, and Ayo Tometi, came together in response to the acquittal of the man who killed Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman. They went on to create a black-centered political movement which would grow to have a global impact. However, the needless loss of life continued with the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and many more. So what started as a simple hashtag, Black Lives Matter, born out of sadness and frustration, has become a global rallying cry for racial justice. Here tonight, yes. So, here tonight at Web Summit to illustrate what the Black Lives Matter movement can teach the tech industry, please give a big welcome to the Black Lives Matter co-founder, Ayo Tameti.
Washington, D.C., a street just blocks from the White House, now painted Black Lives Matter in giant yellow letters.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure, an honor, and my duty to be here at Web Summit alongside with each and every one of you. I oftentimes find myself really reflecting on this moment and wondering to myself, why me? I mean, maybe some of you have been in a position where you've asked yourself, looked back at your life, looked back at an experience that you're having right now and said, why me? Or even a, why us? Or why now? You see, the woman that is in this picture alongside my two sisters would never have imagined herself standing in front of an audience like this, talking about the urgency of now and the movement for Black lives. Never. I often would find myself over the course of my lifetime thinking about myself, projecting myself on to the historical narratives and wondering, who would I have been had I been born 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago? And I find that I am now answering that question. I'm answering that question because the values still are the same, day in, day out, year in, year out. Black lives matter. They've always mattered. Right? And why I ask myself, why me? I oftentimes am not doing that because I have some sort of like imposter syndrome. Let's be clear, I know who I am. I know what I've done. I'm very proud of the work I've contributed and the work I've been able to do alongside so many others. But I find myself asking this because I'm actually an unwittingly not supposed to be here. Let's just say it like that. I am the daughter of Nigerian immigrants. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm supposed to be an engineer, an attorney, a doctor. There are so many stereotypes about what Nigerian immigrants' kids should be accomplishing. And I didn't quite fit that narrative. But I want to let you in on a secret. Part of why I didn't fit that narrative is because my parents taught me something unknowingly all throughout my years growing up in Arizona. They taught me the power of a tightly knit, connected community that looks out for one another. They taught me how to love and have pride in ourselves despite a society that would say otherwise. I watched my parents day in and day out look out for their fellow Nigerian immigrant as they arrived in this country, navigating systems, navigating oppression, navigating what it would sound like when they spoke up and their accent didn't match what the status quo thought of them. I saw my parents move with such clarity of who they are, and who they are, I should say. They moved with such a profound sense of dignity and pride. Some of you may have heard of the term Naija pride. It's something that is so core to who I am, and it extends to who I am as a Black woman, a proud woman. Despite the racial profiling that too many of us experienced in Phoenix, I still had that sense of profound love and pride in my people. It's a beautiful thing. My parents taught me that our skin was a beautiful thing. There was nothing, we can clap for that. I mean, I think so. I know so, all right? They taught me that the texture of my hair was flawless. They taught me that pride. And they did so in such a way that when they had my youngest brother, who is 14 years younger than me, I vowed that I would do anything I could do to protect him. That included his psyche. That included the world that surrounded him and that would inform who he was and what he may think his possibilities would be. I'm a big sister at heart. I love my little brothers so dearly and would change the world to protect them, my goddaughters, and my little cousins, and all. I started Black Lives Matter. Oh, let me go back to this other slide. Because to me, it is important that we have the impact we deserve. It wasn't enough for us to just believe and feel and rhetorically say Black Lives Matter, but it was important to me that we built the infrastructure to ensure that Black lives mattered. And it is why when I saw the words on the Facebook screen that my sister Alicia Garza wrote, I was so moved that I called her. And I said to her, I don't know what this is, I don't know what you're doing, I don't know what you're thinking, but although I'm already involved in social justice organizing, I want to build out a larger platform for us, a platform where we could be connected, a platform where we could amplify our voices and our stories, a platform that would invite the world to journey alongside with us as we lead this movement. I then went off to buy blacklivesmatter.com. I then got our Facebook page, our Twitter, and IG. And while I'd like to say the rest is history, we can tell it's not. I didn't know the many ways that we would have to use this platform. I didn't know that after Trayvon Martin was murdered, there would be many others. I didn't know Rakia Boyd, Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, and so many others would need the platform that we created using the new media tools of our day. I had no idea, but I knew that the impact was what we needed. We are now being declared the largest movement in US history. I mean, it's a big deal. It is my honor and my duty to have ensured that we continue to work to ensure that we had the largest movement. We deserve it. Our communities deserve a better world. One where we're not criminalized for the color of our skin, where we're not gunned down because we don't have enough money to pay a bill. One we're not choked to death in front of cameras. Many would applaud us for this feat of being the largest movement in history. But the truth is that while some may applaud, there are others who would like to deny it, to obscure the fact, and would have many others participate in an ongoing malaise of apathy. But what this headline reminds me is that I get to have faith in us, and that we should have faith in one another, that we have the ability to be something we never had been. We can step into a new story. The status quo does not have to win. These statistics right here remind us that the mandate is not only one that is in the realm or the borders of the US. This reminds us that we, people of courage, people of conscience, are the majority. People who believe and have the audacity to act like Black Lives Matter, like human rights matter. We are the majority. And despite these types of overwhelming and beautiful statistics, we know that there are various odds that come against us. Be it things like trolls on the internet, be it a US government that has now weaponized the FBI once more. We've seen this in other movements, civil rights movement and so on. They now have created a term called Black identity extremists for human rights activists like me, where they get to survey us and once again try to undermine the success and the progress of our movements. We also see issues like troll farms that try to create content to distract our people from voting when it comes to election times. There is so much more to what tries to distract us and detract us. And I could spend a lot of time going there, but I won't today. What I want to remind us is that when Black people lead, when Black people win, when Black lives matter, we create a world where everybody benefits, where different peoples, different social movements find their voice, they find their strength. What I did here was post a couple examples for you. Just towards the end of last year, I'm sure many of you heard about the incredibly courageous and noble farm workers in India, right? You saw the protests. 250 million farm workers went on strike in India, protesting the privatization and the deregulation of the industry that would further make their lives and their work more precarious. They had the courage to organize. And you know what happened in the face of their organizing? They were met with a militarized police force, and they were met with a media, an international media that did not cover their protest. And so what did I do? I went to social media, looking for stories, trying to find out what was really going on. As a person who's committed to human rights, my love and my passion, my commitment knows no borders. And so while I was trying to find out what was going on and why traditional media wasn't really covering it, I decided to just make my own observation and post a critique. And that was a post that I made back in December of last year. And in it, I raised these questions. And the response to the post was overwhelming. Because as somebody who now as a platform, I recognize the privilege I have, right? And so I use the privilege I have and the people who watch my platform to say, hey, we must pay attention to this. And so from there, we saw reporters began to share more of the stories, to document. We saw more and more social media activists, influencers, celebrities, people who were also Indian who had not posted or shared about this protest, found their courage. They found their voice. And that's because Black people oftentimes lead the way. The thing about racism that many people forget is that racism actually exists on a continuum. It's not a binary issue. But the closer you are to Blackness, the darker your skin, the harder it usually is. And so what we find is that as those people who are most marginalized speak out, it gives way to those others to also join in and share their concerns. We also saw the same thing happen with the Washington football team just last year. A very pejorative term was the name of their football team. For years, we've talked about this. For years, we knew that if the US valued the lives of the entirety of its citizenry, they would not use this pejorative racist slur. Yet they continued on with it. And so, with the beautiful movement, the burgeoning voices, another community found their voice, found others who would partner with them to ensure that this football team would change its name. And they won that campaign. I am so excited for the time that we're in. We're in a time where technology actually can help us move things forward, move the conversations forward. But it has to do so in line with values that are human values, that are rooted in justice and in dignity. Rooted in anti-racism, first and foremost. Rooted in a place where we know that we can have the types of democracies that we deserve all around the world. While, you can applaud for that. Tech has that opportunity. The question I pose to you all this evening is, why are you here? Why you? Why at this conference now? In the middle of a pandemic, right? Why are you here? Who will you be coming out of this conference? What side of history will you be found on? I, at the depths of my being, believe that we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the solution. We have an opportunity to use tech to expedite the realization of our values. It's us. It's always been us. And it's time. The time is now. Thank you.
Hey guys, our next speaker and our final speaker, Frances Haugen, has dominated the front pages of newspapers all over the world for the last month. Within tech, Frances' story is probably the biggest story of 2021. She's never before appeared on a public stage. Before I introduce her, I just want to talk about the incredible whistleblowing organization, Whistleblower Aid, that has brought Frances' evidence to the attention of politicians and the public all over the world. Whistleblower Aid spoke at Web Summit in 2019. They spoke because they were behind the Trump-Ukrainian whistleblower whose evidence formed the basis to impeach Donald Trump. Whistleblower aid played a seminal role in the emergence of evidence that led to the downfalls of Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein, among so much more. This tiny organization was only founded in 2017, but already its impact on our world has been earth-shattering. In 2020, Whistleblower Aid created their first outpost in Europe in Ireland. The very first Irish whistleblower that John Tighe, the co-founder of Whistleblower Aid, advised was an entrepreneur called Shay Bowes. Shay had evidence of potential corruption by Ireland's then Prime Minister, or Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar. Shay, together with Ireland's foremost investigative journalist, Michael Smith, editor of Village magazine, went on to publish exactly 1 year ago this week a devastating expose of Ireland's then Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar. The guidance Whistleblower Aid provided to Shay and the work of Michael Smith have triggered the longest criminal investigation into a senior political figure in decades in Ireland. It would never have happened if it were not for Whistleblower Aid's co-founder John Tighe, Shay, and Michael. So before I invite Frances on stage, I'd like to ask John, Shay, and Michael to come out on stage. What you have done, Shay in particular, has taken incredible courage, and I'd like to ask, yellow slide, all three, everybody to give them a huge round of applause for what they've achieved. Thanks so much, guys. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our final speaker on stage. Frances Haugen with Libby Lou, CEO of Whistleblower Aid, in conversation with the incredible Laurie Siegel from 60 Minutes.
Wow, it's good to be back. Quick survey. Besides what Patty just said, how many people here before were familiar with the name Frances Haugen? Okay, so a good amount. Frances, I read something you said. You don't like throwing birthday parties for yourself. I don't. You don't love being the center of attention, yet here we are. You blew the whistle on Facebook, one of the most powerful companies around the world, and now your name is known. How does it feel?
It is definitely a little overwhelming. I'm glad that I've had an opportunity to bring this to light, because there has been a pattern of behavior at Facebook where they have consistently prioritized their own profits over our general safety. And I feel very grateful that people have taken seriously the evidence that I disclosed.
So, you guys can clap. You know, I want to go back to the beginning, and for folks who don't know, for context, you're a former product manager at Facebook. When you left with tens of thousands of internal documents on your way out. Take me to the moment that you decided to leave. What was the turning point?
There's always a trade-off between what can you bring out with you and when you leave, right? There is a real tension between how long can you sit with knowledge versus what is the maximum impact you can have. And so it's a very delicate dance of having to decide when is enough. And at some point, I came to the conclusion that I couldn't responsibly wait any longer, and then I left.
I mean, paint the picture, because I read it's during the pandemic, there's so much suffering, you're living at home with your mom who, I loved reading this point, your mom is a priest?
Yeah.
Did that play into the decision? I mean, what about this was so personal? Because a lot of people decide to leave a company. I mean, everyone here, I'm sure, has wanted to leave a job, but not many people leave and go do what you did. So what was it?
I think there are a lot of kind, smart, conscientious people inside of Facebook. And one of the things that is a human cost of the series of decisions Facebook as an institution has made is that there are a lot of people who have the same experience that I had, which was I came in wanting to work on misinformation, and I learned things that I believed were putting lives at jeopardy.
Like what?
Facebook's current way of prioritizing content in the newsfeed has a side effect of prioritizing and amplifying the most extreme, polarizing, and divisive content. And in places like the United States, that might cause, ruined Thanksgiving dinners. In more fragile places in the world, which almost universally don't have even basic safety systems from Facebook, the systems that Mark himself has said, engagement-based ranking is dangerous unless you have AI to remove the bad things. The most fragile places in the world don't have those systems, and it is unlikely they will have them anytime soon because you have to roll them out language by language. In places like Ethiopia, which is where an ethnic violence incident is happening right now that is being amplified by social media, there's 100 million people and they speak 6 languages. They have 95 dialects. When your foundation of security is based on doing things language by language, it doesn't scale to the most fragile places in the world. So as this truth began to unfold to me, I am so grateful I was living with my mother because I was having an intense crisis of conscience, right? Like, I really hate being the center of attention. Like, I really don't throw birthday parties because it causes me anxiety. Like, right now, my heart is beating about as fast as I can imagine. But she provided a rock for me because I could, she's a smart person. My dad's a smart person. I could sit and explain to them what I thought I was seeing, and they could interrogate my logic. And in that process, I became confident that I wasn't deluding myself. But the secondary thing is that when you're having a crisis of conscience, the ultimate amenity is having a residential priest, because you can sit there and you can wake up every morning and have the same panic attack, and your mother will be like, "It's okay, you should follow your conscience."
Right. And Libby, how did you guys meet? Tell me about getting the call from Frances. Were you afraid to take on this case? Because from what I read, this is a bit of a gamble for whistleblower aid. I mean, it's a big case to take on.
Actually, John Tai, who was just on the stage, was the one that first took in Frances, and they had many, many weeks and months of conversation about what it was that drove her to this, what it was that her goals were, what her evidence looked like, and once they determined that whistleblower aid could support her and protect her, then she retained us.
Why, from the media standpoint, I will say, I've covered Facebook essentially my whole career, and there was something about the way you blew the whistle that was different. Can you help us understand? I mean, there was a rollout. There was first it was Wall Street Journal, there was 60 Minutes, there was a consortium of journalists. It seemed very well executed, so much so that, I think folks have said almost it seemed too polished. That was some of the criticism. How is this different than other whistleblowers, and how are you, what went into this? How is it different?
Well, I originally did not plan to ever come out, right? Like I said before, I don't like attention. And I am so grateful that Jeff Horowitz invested so much time and effort in this, because I had seen from his previous work that he cared a lot about, for example, Facebook's effects in India and how severe they've been. And I felt that the Wall Street Journal was a really good institution to be the first rollout of this, because all the material in the disclosures could be sensationalistic. Like it's talking about genocide. It's talking about human trafficking. It could have been very, very easy for this to have been pushed in a direction that just made people hate Facebook, instead of understanding what are the incentives and dynamics that have led very good, conscientious, kind people in this direction. And at the same time, as we, Whistleblower Aid was really asking me to think about what did the future look like, I knew it was a deal breaker for me not to talk to governments, like to not brief appropriate authorities. And every time you have one of those conversations, your circle of trust expands. And I'm a firm proponent that security through obscurity is dangerous. And they pointed out to me that if I wanted to have the impact that I desired, I would have to come out at some point. And so it's been kind of a thing where I'm really grateful that it seems planned, but a lot of it has been us just sitting and thinking and discussing about what is the next right step. And so in the case of the consortium, I knew I wanted to make sure that non-English journalists had access to the documents in some way. Right. And so once we began working with the press outside the United States, like Congress gave them the docs, we knew that we also had to include the US. And so that's why we had these rings of expansion.
These documents paint such an intimate portrait of what happens inside the company and what Facebook, I think, wouldn't want us to see. Allegations that Facebook knew its products were harming the mental health of teenagers, causing violence in developing countries, polarizing people, not doing enough to curb misinformation. It's quite the laundry list. I can only assume you've spent hours looking through these documents. That's a safe assumption? Yeah. What stood out to you the most? Because I'm assuming a lot of us have seen the headlines now. What is the single most important thing we need to know about these documents?
I think the single most important thing to take away from this is what I mentioned before, which is the content in your newsfeed. Actually, no, I have a slightly different one. Facebook has tried to reform of Facebook down to a false choice. They've tried to frame it as, do you want censorship or do you want free speech? The thing I keep repeating over and over again is that non-content-based solutions exist and are effective for making Facebook safer, making the platform smaller, making it slower. Bad people and bad ideas is not the problem. It's about the question of who gets the largest megaphone. And Facebook has become reliant on huge groups, on 500,000, 1 million, 5 million members. And they have tied their hands with those groups because in order to inject into your newsfeed maybe 3 pieces of content from that group each day, the algorithm has to look at 500, 1,000, thousands of pieces of content and decide what those 3 are. Engagement-based ranking is dangerous because right now, the most extreme content wins out on that foot race. It's like they're viral variant factories, and the ones that are going to be the most extreme and polarizing are the ones that get the largest audience. And I think most people aren't aware that that's actually what's driving the problems on Facebook. It's a very small number of pieces of content. It's a very small number of hyper-involved people that drive most of the integrity problems.
Libby, Facebook will allege these documents are stolen, right? So what protections are there for someone like Frances?
Well, I mean, obviously, the most important thing is that she is lawful in making her disclosures to law enforcement, such as in this case, the Securities and Exchange Commission, which has clear jurisdiction to make sure that publicly traded companies do not mislead the public or their investors. Further, it is entirely lawful for her to make disclosures to the US Congress. So those were the ways that we ensured that her process was lawful.
I was part of the group of journalists that obtained these documents, and I spent a lot of time looking through them. And one of the documents that stood out to me was a resignation letter from someone on the integrity team. And it read, this is what the person who was resigning wrote. It said, time and time again, I've seen promising interventions from integrity product teams with strong research and data support to be prematurely stifled or severely constrained by key decision makers. often based on fears of public and policy stakeholder responses. Do you agree with that sentiment from your time in the company?
I'm a big believer in studying organizational structure. So I am one of the rare, say, data scientists that also has an MBA. And it's because I saw very early on in my career in tech that we need to have healthy organizations. We need to take the process of organizational design seriously. And one of the things that Facebook has that is different than, say, Twitter, is that at Twitter, the branch that makes decisions about what content is safe to be on the platform reports through a different chain than the group of people that is responsible for making sure politicians are happy. At Facebook, those organizations report to the same person, and the consequence is people are often afraid to do actions that do have lots of evidence and lots of thoughtful deliberation.
Facebook will and has said that these documents don't paint a full picture of the company. They're taken out of context. I think they use the word cherry-picked. What's your response?
I find this objection so interesting because there's a really easy solution to saying that I cherry-picked the documents, which is they could release more documents. This is not a hard thing. We're in a very unique situation, right? There are major other tech companies like Google or Twitter that are substantially more transparent than Facebook. People scrape the results on Google and analyze them every day. They write papers. There are public discussions on what should be done. Twitter does the same thing. They have a fire hose. We can see a tenth of all the tweets. A shockingly high number of information operations on Facebook are caught via the Twitter fire hose. That's a red flag. I think the fact that they have characterized these as cherry-picked is itself misleading. I picked a theme and I searched until it seemed I couldn't find more things on that. I really believe in the power of archives, of documentation, and I wanted to make sure that people had the information to make responsible decisions for themselves. As my mother helped me write in my Senate testimony, I let her have the last pass, the last feedback, and she said, every human being deserves the dignity of the truth. And I really profoundly believe that our societies deserve to have enough transparency into how Facebook works that we can make decisions that are in the public good.
It is worth saying these documents were available for anyone at the company, right, to view. They were available on something called Facebook Workplace. Virtually any of Facebook's, I think, 60,000 employees or something could have accessed these documents, could have said something. Why didn't they?
I think that's maybe not the right framing on that question, in that part of why I could feel confident enough that there was a situation at Facebook was that Facebook was not the first social network I worked at. Facebook was the fourth social network I'd worked on. And while I was there, it became evident to me that things were substantially worse than anything I had seen previously. So I had that foundation that allowed me to feel more confident in my actions. The second thing is, in our industry, we have a relatively limited number of people who have worked with algorithmic systems with an eye towards people and people's experiences. I had an interesting undergraduate education at this new college called Olin, O-L-I-N, in that they emphasize the idea that technologists also need to be well-rounded in the humanities because we hold so much power, right? The consequences of our actions they echo. And so I think I had an opportunity that very few people did, and that's part of what made me feel that regardless of how scared I was, I had to move forward.
A problem that the Facebook papers did show is that Facebook, to its credit, it does conduct a lot of really valuable, good research on its own platform. But oftentimes that research doesn't seem to make it to the top where these decisions are made about the platform. Should there be laws requiring platforms to hand over this type of data? What type of laws do you think we should have?
This is another one of those false choices that Facebook has painted. They've said you can either have transparency or you can have privacy. And this is an absolute false choice. There are a lot of ways that data could be released in an aggregated way that wouldn't violate anyone's privacy. But we would have a window into what content gets cherry-picked and amplified out. I'm a strong proponent that there needs to be mandated data, and that given Facebook's past pattern of releasing data to researchers, just in the last 2 months, there was a scandal where, after begging for years for access to data on misinformation, Facebook eventually relented and gave out data. Only it was accidentally caught that Facebook had made assumptions in pulling that data that invalidated years of research. We need to have mandated, accountable transparency, because we need 10,000 eyes looking at how Facebook works. The way we are today can't go on.
Libby, you have represented so many courageous people. You've done work for folks who, as Patty said earlier, have gone up against everyone from powerful politicians, Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein. The work you do is not for the faint of heart. I can only imagine you've been in some interesting situations. If you could extract a common trait of the people who come to you with the desire to blow the whistle, what would it be?
I think it would be a strong sense of conscience, just an inability to tolerate wrong. People are extraordinarily courageous, and they should never have to decide between their careers or even their freedom and their conscience. These people are extraordinary, and we need a lot more protections so that more people can come forward.
Yeah, I saw that you guys offer free legal representation, everything from free legal representation, electronic communications, devices for security, therapy, even armed bodyguards to the folks that you help. Going up against power is scary. So, Frances, can I ask you a human question, since we're nearing the end of this? Are you ever afraid?
It's interesting. I commented this in the green room. I think there's I think all reasonable people, if they were told, like, you could save a life, but there would be consequences to yourself, I think it's reasonable to say, I don't take on that burden. But if the number were 10 or 100 or 1,000, I think most people would think harder on it. And part of why I haven't really felt scared since I left Facebook, I was very scared before I left Facebook that I wouldn't be able to get out what needed to be extracted. But once I got out, I genuinely believe that there are 1 million or maybe 10 million lives on the line in the next 20 years. And compared to that, nothing really feels like a real consequence. I was saying in the green room, like, I've actually, the most scared I've been was sitting in the green room because there's a lot of you. But that's been the journey so far.
Even with armed bodyguards, you haven't worried about your safety. You feel okay.
I feel really fortunate. Like, I live in a place that is kind of peripheral, and I rarely get recognized. I don't read my Twitter mentions. So if you're being mean to me, it's not getting through.
We can't end this and talk about Facebook without talking about Meta.
Oh,
yeah.
Facebook just announced its rebranding as Meta. This is a company devoted now to the metaverse and a whole new and exciting era of the internet. Do you believe the company can get on top of these issues in another dimension, one that's much more immersive?
I think there's a meta problem at Facebook, which is that over and over again, Facebook chooses expansion in new areas over sticking the landing on what they've already done. And I find it unconscionable that, as you read through the documents, it states very clearly there needs to be more resources on very basic safety systems. And instead of investing on making sure that our platforms are a minimal level of safe, they're about to invest 10,000 engineers in video games. And I can't imagine how this makes sense.
Do you? Do you believe Mark Zuckerberg should step down?
I am a big proponent of corporate governance. And right now, the reality is that Mark holds 54% of the voting shares of Facebook. He is the chairman and the CEO. And I think at a minimum, the shareholders have the right to actually choose their CEO. And so I think it is unlikely the company will change if he remains the CEO. And I hope that he can see that there's so much good he could do in the world, and maybe it's a chance for someone else to maybe take the reins.
So that's a yes.
I think Facebook would be stronger with someone who was willing to focus on safety. So yes. Yeah.
You know, I've just spent the last month immersed in these docs. You know,
I know there's a lot.
There's a lot, and it's really fascinating. And I can sense there's so many frustrations of employees commenting on some of these research studies, wanting to be heard. And that was something I noticed in there. You know, they wanted the top executives to hear them, and I'd like to think that in many ways you've now been heard. Everyone here knows your name. People around the world know your name. But now that we've got you here, and we're going to have to wrap very quickly soon, if you were face-to-face with Mark Zuckerberg, what would you say to him?
I have faith that Facebook can change. Like, he has a beautiful dream. You know, he wants to connect people. He wants to make the world a better place. And I think it's a very human thing to focus on the positive over focusing on the negative. But I would encourage him, you know, it doesn't make him a bad person to have made mistakes. But it is unacceptable to continue to make the same bad mistakes after you know that those are mistakes. And so I have faith that he can change.
Libby, have you gotten more calls of whistleblowers since Frances? What's the volume of calls before compared to now?
Our incoming is definitely full up, and you know that's the success of the model, showing that with holistic support, people can come forward and be safe, and that's what we're hoping for.
Last question, Frances. You left the company in May, and your final message, May 17th.
Oh no, she found it.
Oh no.
This is embarrassing.
I don't hate Facebook. I love Facebook.
Yeah.
I want to save it. Can Facebook be saved?
I am an endless believer in the capacity of people and organizations to change. And there is such a huge opportunity for us to have social media that we enjoy, that is human skill, where it's not the AIs picking what we focus on. You know, it's our friends, our family. We get for free more safety when Facebook shows us more of our family and friends. That's in the documents. And so I look forward to seeing what Facebook's like in 5 years. Like, my greatest hope is that Facebook will be a more successful company because we gave it some accountability.
Great. I think that's a good way to end it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, we're out of time. I'm going to invite Patty back to the stage, so we will officially open Web Summit. So, Patty, if you want to come on back. Great.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much to all three of you. Thank you so, so much.
Oh, my.
Oh, wow.
What an incredibly courageous human being. Fair play to you, Frances. What you've done is quite remarkable, and just a huge round of applause for her. So, without further ado, this is very Eurovision in style. I'd like to invite Frances to formally open Web Summit.
Are you guys ready?
Oh my God. Holy shit. That was very fun. I was not expecting that.
I was not.
I know, I want to take in. Let's go. Yay. That's awesome. That did feel very Eurovision.
See you all tomorrow morning, bright and early. I hope you enjoy Night Summit. Thank you to all of you for coming, and thanks to all our speakers. Good night and good luck.
I don't get that many claps.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.